SAP is R3, which is R means real time. 3 is three-tier architecture. And what is a three-tier architecture? The first is the database server accessing single DB. Second one is application server that sits in the middle. Third is presentation layer or server, where users use SAP or work on SAP and post entries or produce uh, reports or forms. Okay, this is three-tier architecture. Okay, next is program is always executed at DB, database server, client server. So one database is assigned to testing, one is assigned to development, one is assigned to production. Testing is QA server, development is configuration plus ABAP development server. So, and production is live server. Okay.
Okay.
For example, if I go to SC11, in SC11, let's say I take MARD, change, this is the table. In table, we have these many fields. Matner works, Algort, which means storage location, plant, material number, client. Now, what is a client? Client is what I've actually shown here. This is a client. Server is a client. Development is a client. Production is a separate client. Okay.
Okay.
So, Shift F5. Let's take another example, and that is MARC. MARC has many other fields like maintenance, status, valuation, category, and this is short description is it's a plant data for material. So anything relevant with material and uh, uh, from the plant perspective, the fields are maintained over here. Now, end user works on the presentation layer, which works with database management systems, which is application layer, and this works on the database. Okay. So the application layer has ABAP workbench. And this is where all the programs, tables, forms, reports, components, integrations are written. All the logic is here at the application layer. Presentation layer, it is run by SAP GUI.exe, which you run when you start SAP, which is installed at end user level. Okay. So this is for entries data display. That's the purpose. And it gets the input, which is parsed to application layer. So if I talk about SAP GUI, there are some types to SAP GUI. For example, for Windows environment, there is another GUI for Java, and the other one is HTML, which is web-based GUI. Okay. So if I speak of SAP, let's go to SC93, SC93, and let's say FS, or what should I take here? F dash F F dash 02 account posting, GL account posting, change, enter, logon language. Oh. Change, logon language is English, logon language. Okay, so this is the transaction package which has all the structure and table structures. Okay, and if we go down, the GUI support is supporting this screen or this transaction for HTML, Java, and Windows. Screen fields are, these are the tables, and these are the fields, and these are the fields related to these tables. Okay, and this is the default value. Whenever we run this transaction code, for example, if I go to this transaction code /nf-02, SAN40 will be shown over there by default. SA and 40. Okay. Okay. Let's say SC93 EF02, change, continue, and we have GUI support, but there are no default values. Only some transactions will make default values. Okay. All right. Till here, it's all easy.
जी सर, थोड़ा थोड़ा.
Okay. Now, speaking of SAP GUI application server that we have discussed, this is how the architecture of SAP is designed, where users are at the presentation layer working with the GUI, and the dispatcher is at the application layer, where these are the web services in HTML language. Okay, these actually capture instructions from here, input from here, and assign tickets to work processes at this level, at the shared memory level. So application layer is actually busy in processing all the request inputs, data input, reports from here and at this level. So whenever a work process is completed, that ticket is closed, and the shared memory is allocating space. So work processes can be a dialog request, or a request to update data, or for background jobs to calculate documents and run the documents at the back end. Backend jobs are for what? Backend jobs are month-end activities for accounts, for material to run reconciliation, month-end jobs, those or pending purchase orders, those are background jobs. For printing reports, yes, there are work processes special for running spool requests for printing. Logical lock request, this is when a document is posted and it has to be calculated like freight tax calculation for purchase order. That will actually wait until the calculation is done. Routing message, which is between application to application server, when there is a stock transfer between plant to plant or client to client, there will be a routing message and the work process will be involved. Gateway message, this is for third-party integration with SAP. That is used for sending or pulling data from third-party software. So ABAP dispatcher actually works at this level where it is handling dialogue, work process, background, work process, log management, spool, and so on. But at the other end of application server, there is the message server, the gateway for third-party internet communication manager for HTML-based SAP execution. The message server handles communication between distributed dispatchers. So these are dispatchers, okay, thereby enabling scalability. Gateway enables communication between SAP and external systems. Internet Communication Manager is the HTTP protocol, okay, in simple words. So user context is basically allocation to a job, a work process in the dispatcher, and that depends on the critical nature of the work process. So a dispatcher, a user context, the user context is basically current settings and authorization. What do I mean by that? By that, I mean SU01 was net display roles. These are my authorizations. Okay. Parameters. These are my parameters that I can actually use for different modules. Defaults, I can change these defaults, and defaults will be DD, DDMMY. Okay, save. Okay. So user authorization and user settings is what is actually allocated at the memory level. So whenever I will, let's say F-02, if I go to this transaction, the transaction is 230429, but I changed the date. So I go to SU01, wasnet, change, log on data, defaults. This is my default English DDMMYY 24-hour format, and this was saved. But then I go to F-02, it's still showing me this. I'll have to log in back to use it. Okay. So user context, which you saw over here, context actually uses name of the program the user is running and actually using it. So this is how ABAP actually runs on and processes and writes on the database, and the work processes are handling the request from the GUI. Okay. User context is in place, which is active in the shared memory until the application is closed. Okay, there are screens and ABAP programs that are being showed. The ABAP dispatcher has queues of requests coming from GUI, and work processes are assigned n number of times to process the request. Okay. Database layer, there is one central database, and the application layer and the presentation layer access the database directly or indirectly. Application access it directly, but presentation layer access it indirectly. So administration data, customizing settings, source code are stored here. So coming back to the architecture, this is how your dispatcher handles the jobs and queues. Okay, this is NQ, this is background, spool, and the other jobs. And there is a buffer always, which keeps on running the request and storing the request, which can have the user context as well. Okay, buffer helps to speed up processing, and it can have customizing data, company codes, and currencies, and can be kept as a copy of the database, which is placed in the shared memory. And this is how application layer communicates with the database, which uses database interface using OpenSQL or native SQL. Okay. The local buffer is a backup of database. Okay. And at the SQL level, the database is accessed. So the ABAP program processes data based on user preferences in that manner, and they get the input from presentation layer, and they post and process data on the database layer. Okay, so this is how this is done. I hope this is clear today or not.
जी सर.
Okay, good.
सर ये आप पावर पॉइंट भी शेयर कर दिएगा फॉर स्टडी.